Grade 12s, we are at question 6 and we're dealing with business roles. Now, when you started off, you had a problem. You did not know what was in paper 2 for the winter schools. And you now have access to that, and you utilized your creative thinking and drew on your knowledge to attempt the questions. We are still finding ourselves in section C, and we are looking at the question 6 question, where again we are looking at your problem solving question, and we have highlighted again so that it's clear what question links with what statement within your preamble. Now, please, again, I'm going to reiterate, you have your 4 bullet questions. You have your cognitive verbs, and the cognitive verbs tell you how you should answer. Firstly, we need to outline the differences of the problem between problem solving and decision making. We then need to discuss the positive impact of the nominal group technique in solving complex problems. We then need to evaluate the impact of the DELPHI technique. Now, grade 12s, when I see the word nominal group technique and I see DELPHI, there are 2 key words that pop into my mind. They should also be popping into your mind. Excuse me. We're now looking at advise businesses on how they can apply the force field analysis to solve complex business problems. When we look at your preamble, we have highlighted the blue as talking to the very first bullet. Exactly the same with the second, the third, and the fourth. Now, remember, when we're looking at our questions, we are looking at the topic, and we are looking at the topic so that we are going to formulate our introduction and our conclusion based on the topic at hand. We cannot repeat anything that has been issued within the preamble. But you can come up with your own conclusion and your introduction. So, we are moving to our first bullet. We talk about an introduction in terms of problem-solving techniques are methods that can be used to solve business-related problems. Remember, the very first question says, outline the differences between problem-solving and decision-making. Here you're saying that there are different problem-solving techniques and they're methods that can be used to solve problems. It links to the topic. Second one, using the force field analysis, the business weighs up the driving forces, advantages, and the restraining forces, disadvantages, against each other. Again, your introduction, 2 sentences that are full sentences that link to the topic of problem solving. And it's 1 tick for each introduction. Grade 12s, the minute you repeat anything in the preamble as an introduction or conclusion, you will automatically see an R, which is repeat, and therefore no marks will be awarded. Read the 4 bullets, look at what the topics are, and you can write anything. Again, breathe. Once your introduction is finished, skip a line, take a breath. Do not write body. No heading body, we're going straight into the next heading. The first heading, differences between problem solving and decision making. Again, grade 12s, two concepts we are differentiating, which means we need to make sure that the link is clear. The link has to be clear. When we look at the differences of problem solving and decision making, again, we utilize like for like. When I make a decision, I am one individual of a member of the senior management, which is in the authoritarian position. So it's one person making the decision. When I talk about problem solving, I'm talking about a group or team that can get together, or it can be an individual team member, but problems can be solved by a group. When I look at decision making, I look at various alternatives that need to be considered. The emphasis is on alternatives. Please, grade 12s, when I look at problem solving, I'm looking at alternative solutions that are generated. When I look at decision making, I'm looking at alternatives considered before making the best possible choice. It's one person. When I'm problem solving, I am looking at the solutions that have been generated by the group or the team and that we've identified, and I'm going to critically evaluate each one. Double ticks because the cognitive verb was outline. It is decision making. It is part of the problem solving cycle as decisions need to be made in each step. So I cannot make the decision and then go to problem solving. Problem solving, we have a problem, we've identified that problem because we've analyzed the situation and we have identified various strategies that could bring about change. There's the problem. I'm looking, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Now I need to take it to top management and they need to make a decision. And they are going to go with the best possible decision. 2 marks at the end of this sentence, and it's submax 6. So if you write more under decision making, we can only give you a submax of 6. And together, 6 and 6 would be 12. We move over to our next question. Discuss the positive impact. The positive impact. Grade 12s, we are talking about the positive impact. Positive impact of the nominal group technique. Nominal. It provides time to think about the question in silence before you respond. You're numb in the beginning, so you are thinking about it in silence. The L, silence, nominal, and then you respond. Take note, discuss, split ticks. Each team member has a chance to participate without the interference from any other member. So we respect each other, but we listen because we're listening to what the other people are saying in our group. Voting on ideas is anonymous. Take note, I'm stating a fact, the voting is anonymous because it's more reliable and honest. Positive. I'm looking for the positive impact. When we address a long question, we cannot think of negatives unless you ask to give negatives impacts. But it is impact, it's either positive or negative, or in this case, they have stipulated that it's positive impacts. It encourages participants to confront issues through constructive problem solving. Remember, you're sitting in silence, you're thinking, you are thinking before you say anything. And because it's a group technique, you get to participate, but you also then get to confront issues so that you can deal with it. Remember, it is a problem-solving technique. It's a strong technique for preventing the conformity to group pressure. You're voting on your own. You're listening to what they have said. You've participated, but now you are voting on your own. No group pressure. Now you will see we're dealing with the impact of the DELPHI technique. Take note between the question or bullet 2 and bullet 3. Bullet 2 was discuss the positive impact. Bullet 3 is evaluate the impact of DELPHI. Now DELPHI, we all know, experts, questionnaires. We're looking at the impact, therefore you're looking at positives and or negatives. You study the ones that you know are the easiest for you to remember. It can just be positive, but it can also just be negative. It can be a combination of both. From a positive perspective, I'm using experts. So I make use of the group of experts without bringing them together. Information received from the experts can be used to solve complex business problems. And this is where the key aspect comes in. I am making use of experts, and they're not in the room. They are at their own venues, and they are receiving information based on a problem. And those experts are experts. They have experience. So that information that we receive from the experts can be used in my business to solve my problem. When we look at the negatives, however, I'm dealing with experts, a big capital E, expensive. Experts, expensive. It's an expensive technique because it is a lot of administration work, which means the cost is going to be incredibly high. So that should be fairly easy. If I'm using experts, when you pay for a guest speaker that is well known to come to your school and talk to you, you're going to pay a lot of money. Therefore, a negative or disadvantage is it is an expensive technique to use. Another disadvantage or a negative is that because experts get paid a lot, they're usually very busy. So not all experts are going to be willing to give you feedback and complete the questionnaires. Why? It's admin. It takes time. So when we're dealing with the experts, we're dealing with the fact that they're expensive, and we're dealing with the fact that they're not willing to give you the feedback and complete the questionnaire. Remember, split ticks. Half the sentence, you get your first mark. Second tick is at the end of the sentence. If you say experts are not willing, you will only receive 1 mark. If you say it's an expensive technique, you will only be issued with 1 mark. Explain to us why it is a disadvantage. Explain to me why it is an advantage. Don't just give me something in short. We're moving over to our question of how it can be applied. When we look at our last bullet in our essay question, we're looking for you to apply the force field analysis. I am looking for you to explain by means of your expertise of how I can implement and apply the force field analysis within this particular situation. The how is focused on what must the business do. I repeat, it's the how. What must the business do? Right. What must the business do? They must describe the current situation, the problem, and what the desired situation is. I must list everything that's driving, everything that is restraining. So I'm looking at the pros, I'm looking at the cons. That will either support the situation or not support the situation. Remember, force field, it's this field of I don't know which way to go, but I'm looking at my positives, I'm looking at my negatives because I want to make sure, or my cons, I want to make sure that what I'm doing is correct. And therefore, it can help the change. If I allocate a score to each of the pros and the cons. So I allocate a score to each force using a numerical scale where 1 is weak and 5 is strong. But please, 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 it's about the how. What can the business do? I can weigh up the positives and the negatives, and then I can decide if I actually really want to go on with that decision. Think of you going to university or college, or rather going to study further or going into the world of work. What are the positives? What are the negatives? Is it something I want to go and do now, or is it something that I can do later? You need to weigh that up, and you need to choose the force with the highest score as the solution. So if there are more pros to you going to study first as opposed to you going into the world of work, then that force is the highest, and therefore you go with that solution. And if the project is viable, find a way to increase the forces for the change. You need to identify what the priorities are. And when you know the priority, you can identify what your action plan will be. Because remember, it's an analysis. I'm looking at pros and cons. I'm looking at what is the situation. How can I get out of it? And grade 12s, when we look at problem solving as a whole, learners do get confused with problem solving and creative thinking. When we look at this particular question in terms of the force field analysis, it could be how you can apply, if we look at another question in terms of how businesses can apply the DELPHI technique to solve the business problems. You must be able to appreciate the fact that there's an impact of that problem-solving technique. If I implement that, that's going to happen. If I use force field analysis, this is going to happen. You decide when I use any technique, specifically when it comes to DELPHI more so, don't use the word employees. You need to use the word experts. Experts relates to the DELPHI technique. When we're referring to forces as an analysis, it's the driving forces, it's the restraining forces. And therefore, you're going to weigh up the positives and the negatives. Just remember as well, when we are looking at techniques, when we study the techniques, the difference between nominal group technique and brainstorming, the emphasis is on the word silently and then aloud. Understanding the meaning of nominal group will assist the understanding why employees must first generate the idea silently and then on their own before sharing them aloud with others. I first think silently and then I go aloud. When we use our forces, we speak of forces, we speak of the current situation and the desired situation, not just the problem. When we look at creative thinking, just be aware. You must know the meaning of creative thinking so that one can understand the advantages. You should first study the ways in which a business can create an environment that promotes creative thinking before studying the advantages of creative thinking in the workplace. So how we structure our learning grade 12s becomes critical to our success in answering questions and understanding content. When studying ways a business or businesses should create an environment that promotes creative thinking in the workplace, you've got to know how. What must I do as a business? It should also be stressed that creative thinking is about the focus of the positive impact of innovative ideas. When we look at the benefits of diversity, we focus on the advantages to having diverse people as part of our workplace. Don't be confused between the advantages of creative thinking and creative ideas. You must please look at the distinction through detailed explanations. Everything must first be positive. Positive, positive, positive. You're going to go into your exam, into your test with a positive mindset. So therefore, when we look at our conclusion, please don't write a negative conclusion. Your conclusion has to be positive. It is important to apply the correct problem-solving technique. Remember, there are various problem-solving techniques. You as a business need to find whatever works best for you. And that's why it becomes important to use the correct. Not it is important to have a lot of money because the technique is expensive. That's a negative. But it's important to apply the correct problem-solving technique to solve the business's problem. Now again, remember, we're talking about problem solving. We're talking about the business. What must the business do? So here you are implying that it is important to have the correct problem solving technique so that you can solve the problem that the business has. And how can you do this? You can implement change and you can use a technique to bring about change. Here you can bring about change using the force field analysis. And it becomes important that you remember when you are finished a presentation, you speak clearly and you are focused on the positive. Quick finish up, so you're going to give one bullet point, one full complete sentence. When we had our introduction, we gave 2 bullet points because we want to introduce you to what we are going to be speaking about in our essay. Conclusion, you've got to the end, you're tired, people are tired of listening, conclude quickly, but it must link to the topic within the 4 bullet questions. Grade 12s, again, your originality are 2 examples from the media. Anything that relates within in the year, you can use as long as it is an example that is from the current media, and it needs to be 2 points. Also remember that if you hit a blank at any given point in time, please don't repeat anything that's in the preamble. Also make sure that you try. It does not necessarily have to be the words in the core notes or your textbooks. Use what you know and work from what you know to compile an answer based on what the question is in your essay. I'm going to conclude and say everything of the best for all of your preparations. Please remember that preparation is key. Practice makes perfect. And if we go right back to where we started, you need to flip your preparation in the different direction by using your past papers, analyzing what has been asked, practicing those questions, and making sure that you know your content well enough. Practice makes perfect. Everything of the best for the up and coming trial exams and your final exams. May you be super successful in whatever you do. And remember, quality work gives quality marks. Good luck, grade 12s. Go well, be well. Bye-bye.